presented by Dano's Seasoning. Yum yum, get you some.
Welcome into the Sun Belt Syndicate with you from the first kick to the last pitch. As always, the partner in crime, TJ Corman, with us tonight. TJ, I think we should do a little bit of an intro because we probably have some new people this season specifically. So I am just a fan of college football, never played the game myself. As you can see behind me here, a bit of an App State fan. The wife graduated from there. I lived up in the area, got connected, got aligned with App State, and just fell in love with the football community there. And luckily, TJ was on the team when all that was happening. So, TJ, tell the people a little bit about your experience coming into this.
Yeah, so wasn't really looking to get into talking football. Always loved to. Always thought that, could be a potential opportunity there for me. Breaking down plays. I'm a football junkie. Have been. I watch Little League football. I'll watch anything, man. There's high school football on TV. I think it was St. Thomas Aquinas versus I think another team in Florida the other night, and I was checking out on ESPN. I just love watching the game. I'm a purist, and so got into it. Having played, I think you agree that maybe there could be some perspective added to what we do here, play-by-play analysis, that kind of thing, and one thing led to another, and we're in year 2.
Yeah. And what he didn't tell you is that he was part of the 3-time national champions. I
try to leave that part out just because it was like 20 years ago.
Well, it goes towards the experience. So,
that is true.
That's what you bring that I could never possibly bring. And you've also got that previous player aspect that obviously we're going to lean heavily on going forward with NIL and everything, and what your thoughts and opinions are on that. And we've already gone over a lot of those things, but obviously they will continue to come up as it continues to evolve and get different from what we know as fans and what you experienced as a player. We've got a great show lined up for you tonight. I know TJ was disappointed as he didn't get to participate in the interview for this week, but we did get to interview TJ. And if you're confused by that, that's because TJ is not only the co-host here, but also who we interviewed down from Georgia Southern, who was kind enough to give us some of his time. We don't want to keep you waiting for that. So without further ado, we are going to introduce you to this week's guest of the week in a big game coming up for Georgia Southern as well. Guest tonight hails from Atlanta, Georgia. He spent his previous 3 seasons at K-State before transferring to Georgia Southern last season. A 5'9", 180-pound defensive back that was named to last season's All Sun Belt Honorable Mention team. He represented the Eagles down in New Orleans for media days and has been named a team captain for the 2024 season. Please help me welcome to the stage Mr. TJ Smith.
Yes, sir.
How's it going today, TJ?
Pretty good. It's been a nice little morning. I've been getting a lot done, and I'm glad to be here doing this interview with you.
Absolutely. We're glad to have you. And first and foremost, I want to start off by asking you said a little bit of recovery this morning. You're overall good and healthy to start the season?
Oh, yeah, sir. I'm 100%. I did deal with some injuries, early in my career, and I feel like that has, taught me to really take care of my body. If it didn't happen, I probably wouldn't take care of my body as good as I do now. So I've been pretty healthy this year and just ready for a big year this year.
Nice. Very nice. We love to hear that. I'm glad to hear that injuries are not a concern coming into this season. So we did touch on the fact that you previously played at K-State. I want to jump into a little bit of the stats here from there. You had 3 seasons there. You entered in the transfer portal. When you entered into the transfer portal, was there an idea of kind of coming back home? Did it just kind of work out that way? Can you explain kind of how you ended up as an Eagle?
It kind of just worked out that way, and it's a crazy thing. It's a crazy story. So when I had first entered the transfer portal when I was at Kansas State, one of my friends, his name Justice, we were sitting in the car, and he was like, TJ, I see you going somewhere like Georgia Southern. And I'm like, man, I ain't going to Georgia Southern, you know what I'm saying? And, it turned out that's just how it worked out. Georgia Southern gave me the call. Coach Harris was here. He had left, before the season started, but he was a big part of me getting here. Coach Helton, he was real genuine when I met him. And I knew where I wanted to be after that. It was closer to home. being in Kansas, I only went home like twice a year. My parents barely came to the game. You know, I went through some tough times out there. So it was definitely one of my goals to be closer to home. And I ended up being 3 hours away down here in Statesboro, Georgia, and I loved it.
Very nice. I love to hear that. I love the fact that, you get to go home more and you get to see some of your family members and they get to see you play more often, because I can only imagine how difficult it must be to get all the way out to Kansas for some of those games. But you did participate in some pretty big games as well while you were out there. Is there any particular game that kind of sticks out to you?
I had a game my freshman year. Probably a lot of people there at Kansas know me from, but we played Texas Tech. I had got in, we were kind of down. I had like 7 big hits. I was going a little crazy that game. And I would say my other one that I liked the most was probably when we won the Big 12 against TCU the year before I left. That was a good team that I was on. I got a lot of my best friends from that team. A lot of them in the NFL now. So those 2 games alone kind of stick out the most for me when I was at Kansas State.
Nice. Makes a lot of sense there. A lot of big time teams now in the Big 12, even when you were playing as well. So, had some representatives in some pretty big games. It's pretty cool to have some head-to-head matchups as far as that's concerned. So you were named to the Sun Belt Honorable Mention team. You've been named a team captain. What do you expect out of your game specifically this season and maybe the defensive unit as a whole?
I got real high expectations for myself. Last year, the honorable mention thing kind of, it got to me a little bit. I feel like I should have got better than that, but, it shook out the way it did. But this year, I'm going nothing less than All-American, first team, all-conference. And, for the defense, we plan on being the best. Well, I feel like we are the best in the conference and nothing less than best in the country. I feel like we can go get that if we just stick to our plan, do what our coach tells us to do, and just keep working like how we're working. We got a squad. This has been one of the hungriest teams I ever been on in my life. And I was on a real good team at Kansas State, but it's a different feel. And from last year to this year, it's a lot of the same guys that was on the team. So, we kind of felt, what was going on last year. We hear everybody talking, saying, oh, Georgia Southern defense wasn't good, this and that. So, yeah, we coming different this year for sure.
I love to hear that. Love to hear that mindset, that outlook on the season there. One of the other reasons, pretty obvious at this point, but one of the other reasons we've got you on this show, aside from those ones we just mentioned, is just a little bitty matchup that you may have with one of the top thought of group of 5 teams coming into this season in Boise State. You guys host them down at Paulson this Saturday. What do you think going into this one? I mean, just start us off with the basic first question, maybe the most excitement with what the crowd is going to be going into the game down there.
Man, I'm not gonna lie, Paulson, it's electric. It's not even one of the biggest stadiums, but you'll think it's 50,000 people in here. When the people be out there sitting on the grass, the fans bring the energy. And if a lot of people don't know, Georgia Southern is a community-ran team. This team was started by the community, so this community takes it real serious, and we take that serious. Down to when we do the Eagle Walk, when we be on the Yellow Dogs, it's just all love from the fans, and it just makes us, ignite and go out there and play hard for them. Definitely.
Absolutely. What about the history and tradition behind the bus ride over to the stadium with those old school yellow buses? You a big fan of that? I know that there's a lot of hard-nosed football guys that love that type of thing. And I know the fans love it, but what about the players? You guys like piling into those things and then getting out right there in front of your home fans?
Yeah, I'm definitely a big fan of it. I love the tradition. Every time we do it, it just gets me into that mode. I even started headbutting ERK. I've been headbutting ERK for the past year. I didn't really do it last year, but I just love embracing the university. And when you do that, you play different when you really love what you love the tradition and buy into everything that's going on here. So I love it. I love everything we do.
No doubt about it. I know the fans love it down there too. So an obvious question, and obviously you deal with a little bit of this and a lot of bit of the receivers, but how do you guys as a defense look to stop one of the best running backs in college football in Ashton Jeanty this coming weekend?
First, I would like to say, we ourselves got one of the best running backs in the country with Jalen White. So, we go against him every day. So I feel like as far as him being one of the best, I feel like we got the best and we've went against it. But if we just do our job, stay gap sound, do everything we know we can do, I feel like it'll be no problem. Like I said, Coach Bailey's putting in a good game plan for us, and we're gonna execute. That's the biggest thing. We execute. We got everything we need. We got all the talent. We should be able to get that job done.
Absolutely. I know that a lot of us in the Sun Belt want you guys to win this one for many reasons, but obviously to show the power and the pride that this Sun Belt Conference has, obviously putting so many teams into bowl games. Last year, you guys went up against Ohio in the was it Myrtle Beach Bowl? Was that one?
Sure, Myrtle Beach Bowl.
Yeah, that's right. All right. I knew it was a close one as far as regionality wise, but I couldn't remember if that was the one off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
On the flip side, you just talked about what you see and what you go up against on your offensive side. What do you think they're going to show the fans? You know, J.C. French being named the starting quarterback going into this one. What do you think the fans and the audience watching on national television is going to see with what your offense can do against this Boise State defense this week?
I would just like to say I got one word: electric. You know, everybody on our offense, they're pretty electric. We got a lot of good receivers, a lot of good running backs, even other than Jay White. You know, we got OJ, T. Gibbs. You know, so we got a lot of electric guys on the offense that's going to get the crowd going for sure this year. Definitely.
Yeah. Speaking of electricity, yeah, with the running back room you guys have, also, if you need like 2 or 3 yards, I feel like that is not going to be a factor for your offense to get those.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all.
So I also want to touch on the fact we've got a 12-team playoff. Almost said 4 again because it just rattles off like that. We've got a 12-team playoff this year. You guys actually have a schedule that if you take advantage of this, I don't know how anybody could not conclude you in the conversation. So you host Boise State, as we've just talked about, obviously, here. You travel to Nevada, which we just saw them put up one heck of a fight against just an ACC team, and obviously just moved up in SMU, but they almost pull off a stunning victory there. Then you travel to what right now is number 6 in the country, Ole Miss, before going through a pretty tough slate in the Sun Belt Conference itself. I mean, are you guys just excited for the potential of this schedule and what was put together for you guys this season?
Definitely. We are all excited, and we know it's ahead, but we try to just take this one game at a time. And I feel like if we do that, you know, just execute every week, every day, take advantage of all the opportunities that we get, then we can look up at the end of the year and be in the playoffs. You know, that's something I always wanted to do myself. You know, my brother, he won 2 national championships at Georgia, and I just feel like that's always a dream. Like, we don't do this for no reason, and that'll definitely be an honor to be, like, put in that 12-team playoff this year. But we just got to take it one game at a time. We know we got a tough schedule, but we're a tough team. So I feel like we'll be good.
Yeah, I did. I really have a lot of confidence in you guys going into this season, especially looking Coach Helton in the face and asking him about this defense and the fact that he said, I'm not afraid to say this in front of Jalen, but I believe the defense is going to lead the way this year. Because I asked him straight away if he thought what he told Phil Steele about your defense being a top 25 defense was, you know, very legit. And you can tell he didn't look away, look me dead in the eye the entire time that answer came out of his mouth. He really, truly believes you guys can be a top 25 defensive unit this season. And that'd be exciting because we've seen some good defensive units in this conference. We saw what James Madison did last year with their great defensive unit. So if you guys can put that together and your offense comes alive, I would say watch out for Georgia Southern. And I know the fans are thinking that. So we'll touch on this aspect. Obviously, the last win for your program came back in late October of last year. How much would this big win, first game at home against a big opponent, mean for you guys to just jumpstart this season before heading on the road to Nevada?
The reality of the situation, you know, we are currently on like a 5-game losing streak. So I feel like our biggest thing is to, you know, break this losing streak, you know, start the year off strong this year, and then just finish from A to B. Like going into November last year, you know, we were 6-2 and we just didn't finish. So Coach Helton has been harping on us to, you know, go from A to B with whatever we do and just finish. So I feel like coming out with a big win this Saturday will just jumpstart us and just get us going. And we just need to carry that on through the rest of the year, all the way through December.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that will really set you guys off in the right trajectory and ruined Boise State's hopes for all intents and purposes from the Mountain West. So as a Sun Belt guy, obviously that would be fine with me. Let's get into a little bit more of the fun stuff. I kind of asked you this at Media Days. I want to know, expand on it a little bit. How much more of the video game have you been playing? Have you matched up? Are you and your brother keeping like a record of who wins and loses between the two of you?
I haven't even played against my brother. I haven't even played the game because I was a little frustrated. I feel like they lowballed us on a lot of our overalls. But you know, I'm not a big game guy. I don't really play the game. You know, I play football in real life, so you know that's kind of what I focus on. Like the game's gonna be there. You know, at the end of the year, I'll probably show my kids one day that I was on NCAA, and my big goal is just getting on Madden, if you ask me. So I haven't even really played NCAA too much, but I love that they brought it out, and you know it's big for everybody. You know that has been waiting on it and been wanting to play it. You know, I'm not hating on the game at all, but I just don't. I'm not a big game guy.
Gotcha. Now you got a copy of the game for free. Is that how that works? Right? Like if you opt in, they give you a copy and you get a check from them. Is that right?
Yes, sir. It was. We got it, and they gave us like a $600 check for the game. Yeah. Nice.
So I asked this once of a previous guest. Has the 600 been spent? Has it been saved? Does it kind of divide between the two? What kind? I told guys that I'm spending it immediately. I'm terrible with money, but
that 600 definitely got spent as soon as I got it. Not as soon as I got it, but I wasn't holding on to it at all. I was grateful for them to give us that. I feel like we should have got a little more, but I wasn't tripping though. I really appreciated it, and I definitely spent that. Definitely.
Well, if you get to that Madden aspect, I guarantee you get a little bit bigger of a payout for that NFLPA. So
yeah, definitely.
that'd be a heck of a goal there. Sir. Man, well, TJ, I know that you have a little bit of a schedule. You got some stuff you need to get back to. Is there anything you want to personally leave us with that we should know about you guys or you in particular? And also give the people your socials if you'd like to for them to follow along during the season for you.
I would just say I appreciate everybody that's out here supporting Georgia Southern and me myself. My socials is my name, Tajiri Smith, TAJIRISMITH. That's all my socials. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, or X now or whatever. And like I said, I appreciate you for having me on here. And go Southern. I mean, hell Southern. I'm tripping.
You can say gotta. I think people like that too, right?
Gotta. Yep. I don't think a lot of people know what that means though.
Well, yeah. I think Southern people know what that means. Maybe some of the other people not so sure, but
a lot of people don't know what that means.
you guys win that first game, a lot of people are going to find out what that means.
That's what we're doing, though. That's what we're doing all year for sure.
There we go, man. Well, hey, best of luck this weekend. Thank you so much for making the time. And everybody listening and tuning into this, please go follow along TJ as he goes throughout the season.
Yes.
Awesome, man. That was great work by TJ. Oh, there's Dominic. Great work by TJ during that interview. Seems like a great kid, great stand-up guy. I'm really, really, really interested in that Boise State matchup. I think the two are going to match up really well. Boise State, and I was just, as the video is playing, taking a look at their schedule. I've got it up on my other screen here now. Boise State, they've got a lot of winnable games, obviously. Georgia Southern, I'm sure they're thinking is one of the ones that's quite winnable. But they've also got Oregon. They've got Washington State, Utah, and Oregon State. If they end up losing to Georgia Southern, you're talking now potentially 4 or 5 losses in that season. That's going to be way below expectations for Boise State fans, Boise State players, and quite honestly for NCAA as a whole. I think a lot of people have them winning, 8 to 10 football games this year. I'm just trying to figure out, I know Oregon's a loss. That Oregon State game is going to be tough. Georgia Southern game is going to be tough. Utah State was a great team last year, and then Washington State is going to be pretty tough too. So, looking at the schedule and kind of taking into account where everything is, I think Boise State they've got a tougher road ahead than most people think. I know their in-conference schedule isn't terribly tough, but certainly out of conference, it's going to be a hellacious journey. That's for sure.
Yeah. No doubt about it. You hear me okay?
Yeah,
Through the technical difficulties?
Yep, gotcha.
Okay, cool. So your dad said, all right, who tripped over the part after that? I don't know. I don't know what happened. I will tell you, I called TJ in the background. I was trying to figure out what was going on. All I know is I have 3 screens up. 2 of them were fine. One in the middle went black, and I lost everything. So we want to apologize for anybody who was watching and listening to that, hoping to see all that in full. I will put that video up in a separate YouTube so that you can watch it uninterrupted. To any family and friends of TJ or TJ himself, I do apologize. No clue what happened there, but we will make that right, and we'll edit the audio version so you won't even know anything happened there. So we're set.
Listen, man, this is ESPN, right? We don't have a room full of producers and people backstage queuing us up and telling us when to come in and handling all this stuff. We're doing it ourselves. So if you're that much of a stickler about some technical difficulties, go find yourself another show, because this isn't it. We are not going to be perfect. This is year 2 of us doing our thing on this show. We're glad you're tuning in. Certainly happy to have you. But there are going to be some times like we just had that things don't necessarily go 100% according to plan. But we will try to be professionals and improvise and move on.
Exactly. And one other thing we got to know, he says, stop leaving it out. 3-time national champion. It's something to talk about. It's credibility, not bragging. Remember the old Western phrase, no brag, just facts.
That is a fact. Leave it to my granddad to pull it out.
Yeah. And then we did have Artie chiming in before we got really rolling. Obviously our biggest fan, as we know. And
you might as well be a part of the show.
I did stay with us because he just commented just this second. Almost December 1st and still no Pac-12 or Mountain West schedule extension. Yeah. Interesting.
Yep. Very much.
Very interesting. So, TJ, we put this out on the socials a little earlier. I didn't have a whole lot of people with apparent problems with it, but people probably thought something they may not have shared. But we decided we're going to do some power rankings, probably weekly as we go along the season here. I don't know. TJ, start us off with just a quick overview, because we're going to go game by game here in a minute. But just what your thoughts were about where you put some of the teams where you did.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm a homer, right? You can kind of count on me putting App State first most of the time, but also too, as an unbiased, opinion, Appalachian State has a lot of big name players returning, right? Most importantly, a starting quarterback, another year invested in the offense. Offensive line, we only lost 2 players, both of which are gone to the NFL. So if you're going to lose 2 players, you might as well lose them to the NFL. I think Appalachian State is going to be, receiving core is coming back. We've got our running back, a stable of running backs coming back. I think our defense is going to be intact. We've got a really good transfer corner coming in. I really think Appalachian State is going to be cream of the crop, so to speak. Now we've got to play like it. But I do think App State is going to come in and do some really good things. We had a little bit of differences in our next 2. Texas State, I do think is going to be really good. But I also think the Cajuns are going to, just based on strength of schedule, I think the Cajuns are going to do really well this year. I think that head-to-head matchup is going to be big for those guys. And then as we, I'm not going to go through every single team, but as we move down and through the conference, JMU has got some work to do, right? They lost, they got some of we talked about it, I think, week prior, or I think 2 weeks ago, about roster turnover there. Yeah, they've got unprecedented amount of roster turnover that they've got to kind of figure out. So I've got some faith in JMU in the sense that they can kind of pick it up where they left off. They've been historically a good program, right? I played against them back in 2006, 2007, whenever. And since then they've been a historically good program. So I do see them bouncing back. I got Georgia Southern being better than they were last year. There's no way that they end the season or start the season the way they ended last year, right? Yeah. I gotta give them a good shot against Boise State. I don't know that they'll beat Boise State, right? But especially week 1. Week 1 is always tough because you don't really know who you are as a football team until about that 2nd or 3rd week, which is tough because college football doesn't get the preseason games and all that kind of stuff that the NFL gets to kind of work the kinks out. So, which is a lot of the reason why a lot of those guys play, I guess you can call it, lesser opponents, to kind of get those things worked out. So I do think week 1 is going to be tough for Georgia Southern, but I think they get back on track, and I think they do better than they certainly do better than they did last year. But yeah, going down the list at ULM, listen, they are who they are, right? I don't see them finishing that great. I think Marshall takes a huge step back. Georgia State, I don't know, man. I don't see a whole lot out of them as well. I know you've got Arkansas State ranked 6. I got them at 8. Not a huge difference, but I think there'll be a couple games that they trip up on because I don't think that they're used to the success that they're about to have. And I think it's going to take them a year or two to kind of get into their groove. So that's kind of an overview, right? I'm not going to go team by team. But that's kind of an overview of why I chose the way I chose. We're similar in a lot of areas, and in some areas we differ. But yeah, listen, I think overall it's going to be a good season. And we talked about this before. Every single week in the Sun Belt is a must watch because anything can happen, right? I mean, look what happened last year, ULM at App State or App State at ULM. You know what I mean? Like it's just anything can happen. So I think there's a lot of good ball games that we've got coming up. I think I pulled the schedule. Let me go back a screen. Pull the schedule up, for Sun Belt coming up this year. And I think right out of the gate, I mean, there's going to be some good games that Troy's got Nevada, great chance to win that game. Obviously, App's got East Tennessee. We talked about Georgia Southern, Old Dominion at South Carolina. I don't give ODU a whole lot of a chance to win that game, but it could be a good statement game, right? Georgia State and Georgia Tech can be huge.
Yeah.
A good chance. I say all that to say it's a good shot for the Sun Belt to kind of make a name for themselves in those first couple of weeks of football.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I won't echo much because a lot of it is quite similar, right? I mean, you can see it's really very similar towards the top, a little bit of difference in the middle, and then just a tiny bit at the bottom, to be honest. But it's mainly the teams that were kind of down there before with stuff to prove. Again, these are not what we predict the standings to be. This is where we think lined up right across the field from each other right now. This is kind of your top to bottom list for each of us.
Right.
So we're going to continue to have fun with that throughout the season. I'm sure we'll hear a lot more thoughts as it gets rolling. Speaking of getting rolling, let's jump right into week 1, shall we, TJ?
Oh, yeah. Let's get it done.
Oh, I went a little too far. Double click there. Man, we just got all kinds of things happening tonight. So the first matchup, actually just wrote a preview article for this on collegefootballdogs.com. Quick shout out to all of our sponsors, including Dano's Seasoning, FanFlex Graphics. You can find them at fanflexgraphics.com and W Energy. All those promo codes are down below at checkout to give you a little something off when you check out. We didn't cover that at the beginning of the show, but wanted to shout out all of those guys real quick. But let's get into this. Warhawks hosting Jackson State. We know Prime is no longer there. They do have a heck of a coach in T.C. Taylor. I knew I was going to trip over that name. Too many T's there.
Right.
But he was apparently widely considered to be the best player they ever had because he played both quarterback and wide receiver for them. Led them to a 7-4 record last year. Very respectable in the first year as a true head coach. I mean, they've never beaten as a program an FBS team. Is this a good chance for them to take down ULM? Or do you think ULM with the new head coach, General Booty at the quarterback position, do you think the talent maybe overweighs, or do you think this is going to be a really close game throughout?
Yeah, I think it'll be close throughout. I think the line is 7.5 to ULM. I wouldn't be surprised either way, right? I'm not gonna, and I know that's a cliche statement, and we say it week after week. It's just one of those games where it's hard to project what this could be, because I do got a lot of faith in Jackson State. I do think that Jackson State can be a good football team. I don't think ULM is very good, right? And they haven't been for a little while, and they've got some turnover on the roster and at coaching and in the coaching. I think if there were an opportunity for Jackson State to win a D1 game, this would be it. So am I going to bet on it? Absolutely not. Not going to bet on it at all. But do I think it could happen? 100%. 100% this is an opportunity for them.
Yeah. I unfortunately, of course, we favor the Sun Belt in most things. I do think there's a shot here. I really do.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to be necessarily that you watch player for player that they're going to match up the greatest. But this is a thing where this team's coming off a 7-4 season, maybe gelling at the right time. The coach has said that the quarterbacks continue to evolve going into this season? Is this a team that is primed with that chemistry aspect that ULM does not have yet? Or are we going to be surprised when ULM is drilled really quickly? General Booty's a literal field general and goes out there, executes the game plan beautifully, and, just puts all doubt kind of aside, at least for this type of a matchup. Obviously, against more of a power team or something, you have more questions, even if they played well in one game. But I don't know. I'm excited to watch it. I will say that, because I do think it's going to be one of those ones where ULM may struggle out the gate as not having real live ball situation stuff against a team trying to smash you in the mouth, since a lot of these guys are on the roster. But that's why we tune into the games. And that one, as you can see on the screen, ESPN Plus, Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 Central Time. I know there's a lot of excitement at that Warhawk program, so
for sure,
a good one to check out if you haven't there. And we'll get into Artie's question. Is Will Hall on the hot seat of Southern Miss this year? That's a good question. We'll round back into that one.
I was going to say, let's bring that back later.
Yeah, exactly. Our next matchup here, and if you see, one of the things we wanted to do this year too was kind of star or highlight some of the games of the week, and I truly believe that this is one with what Jacksonville State. Okay, we just talked about Jackson State. There's two different teams. Jackson State FCS team, Jacksonville State, and FBS team got to participate in a bowl game last year, even though they were not officially supposed to. Just like James Madison, they were in the transition. They needed to qualify because other teams didn't, type of thing. But this was a matchup that already happened last year. Coastal took it at home. Jacksonville State now hosts this one. Got essentially it's not a new quarterback. Ethan Vasco, who most expect to be named the starter, which Tim Beck is refusing to name his starter literally until like kickoff time for this one. TJ, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, it's like an almost obvious answer, but the coach is just holding back. Is it really a tool, or is it just coach speak that he thinks it matters?
Yeah, listen, he knows who his starting quarterback is going to be, right? Let's get that out of the way now. Like, there's no coach that is this close to a football game and doesn't know who his starting – he knew 2 weeks ago who his starting quarterback was. He just wasn't going to tell us. And that's fine. I'm okay with that. It's gamesmanship. I'm all for it. It is what it is. You got a couple guys that you need to prepare for. I do think both will play. I think given what Coastal is trying to do, I think both quarterbacks will play. I think we'll let one get hot, right, and see kind of where we go from there. But Coach, he knew who his quarterback was. It'd be silly to you. I would think less of you as a coach if you're getting this close to game time and not knowing who your quarterback is. He knew who it was 2 and 3 weeks ago. So,
yeah, and I venture to say he knew it as far back as media days. I specifically asked him how Vasco has evolved and developed as a quarterback under the tutelage of Grayson McCall, and now that he's left, and he went off for like a 2-minute spiel on Vasco before he ever mentioned any of the other quarterbacks, just gushing over the guy. And I'm like,
right,
this is the guy.
That's probably your guy.
it's like, oh yeah, I got to mention Noah Kim and the other guys too. Yeah. It's no disrespect to them. Noah Kim's coming in from a different team, learning a new offense. So he may become the guy, like you said. We probably see both. If he thought it was that close, he's at least going to give the other guys some run, especially if Jacksonville State is up early and they're trying to do something to change the momentum.
I was going to say, shake it up a bit. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know if I expect that. I think Vasco's truly the guy. I think he's the dual threat. I think he's got the arm. I think the only question mark for me for Vasco is the accuracy. Just got to improve a little bit. But it's not. It's also not that he takes bad chances. That's not what I'm talking about. The accuracy. It's just sometimes he could hit guys in stride a little bit better and either gain more yardage or complete a couple more passes because of it. It's not that he's throwing the ball to the other team all that often or anything. But anyway, dangerous guy with his feet too. So
for sure.
I guess I favor Coastal in this one. Barely.
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna go with Coastal. I'm a Sunbelt homer, and a lot of these games, no brain. I mean, I'm gonna pick with my head, obviously. Look, Coastal took it last year. I can't imagine them dropping this game. Well, I can't imagine it. I don't want to imagine it happening. Jacksonville State is a good football team. They really are. They showed us last year they were a good football team. They deserve to be in conversations like the one we're having right now. right? Like they are a good football team. I think Coastal is going to be a little bit too much. Coastal's been here before, been here a while. And they're year over year a quality, let's call it that, a quality football program. Jacksonville State historically has not been that. Right. So if I'm going to bet my money, I'm going to go with, what do they say? The best indicator of future behavior is past behavior. I'm going to go with what I know. And what I know is Coastal's a good football team. And they took it last year and have a good chance to take it again this year.
Yeah, I'd say Coastal went a quiet 8-5 last year, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, if quiet is the word, yes.
Right, exactly. All right, one that
next slide.
Yeah, one that I don't know if we expect a lot to learn from this one. It's not starred. It's not a game of the week. It should be a tune-up game. ETSU is not even a top FCS team. They had some recent seasons where they were from 2-3 years ago up to.
Sure.
But these last one or two, not impressive. Appalachian State obviously is on the other side of that, being in the championship game for the Sun Belt last year and winning their bowl game coming into this one. As you said when we started off the show, TJ, a lot of returning starters offensively, maybe not on the offensive line necessarily, but
sure.
Some really big transfers that have come in there. So if nothing else, I expect them to run the ball and control the clock and come out with a victory. I'm going to let you go off on anything further detail-wise you think this one can give us, or anything else you want to say on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I hate using words like tune-up game and things like that. I mean, I was a part of one, right? And I hate keep bringing up Michigan. You never want to sleep on a team, right? Like Michigan slept on us for about a quarter and a half, and by that time it was too late. So I never want to call these kind of games tune-up games. I think one of the things you just said, Dominic, was we don't expect to see much out of the way or a prove it type of deal for Appalachian State. I think what this game is going to allow us to do, though, is help us understand where we are as an offense, right? And as a team, as a whole, right? Do we come out flat? How do we want to start our season off? Is this going to be one of those games where it's, 17-14-3 or something like that going into halftime, or do we kind of kick the can early and put them to bed? So it's going to show us a test of how serious this team is, right, about their business. I think last year didn't end the way that this team traditionally has things in, right? And I think that should have left a bad taste in a lot of these returning guys' mouth. And I think this should be a team that we take it out on. I think it's a tune-up in terms of getting the cylinders firing, right? Getting everybody on the same page, understanding the offense, understanding the flow, kind of getting back into game form. But I don't think much more than that, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I think this, to me, is one of those games you see like a high 50s or possibly a 60 mark.
Yeah.
And if that, I mean, I could see the defense really shutting down ETSU as they haven't been explosive. So I hate to say this because it'll be a game that I'm going to be at, but maybe don't tune into this one unless you want to see some stuff early.
Right.
See how bad it may get. Hopefully, like TJ said, this is very fan-esque when we're saying, hey, they should win this one easily. I'm sure the players and coaching staff is extremely focused on the task at hand, especially in this first week.
They better be.
Yeah, exactly. They better be, because they could get caught off guard. All right. This is the big one, I think the biggest in the conference this year. And your internet wants to know if the Georgia Southern game will be televised. And yes, ESPNU, so technically national television. It's one of those things you got to have the package that includes ESPNU to get it. But technically,
my granddad, I set up his YouTube TV account, so he has ESPNU, so he will be watching, I'm sure.
No free ads though, TJ.
No free ads, but he has YouTube TV, so he's good.
If they just give us YouTube TV for free, fine, I'll take that. We don't even need a sponsorship dollar-wise.
Yeah, I don't care about a sponsorship if you give me $77 a month for no reason.
There you go. We'll ask. We'll see what they say.
Right.
But yes, Georgia Southern host, I guess probably one of, if not the odds-on favorite to be the G5 playoff representative in the new 12-team playoff. We heard from TJ Smith. Again, we will repost that interview so you can hear it uninterrupted. But he really thinks they stand a chance. Clay Helton down in media days looked me straight in the face and said he does truly believe that this could be a top 25 defense for the Georgia Southern Eagles. I'm starting to believe it, man. When somebody looks you in the eye and TJ's telling me it's the most intense team he's ever played for, and he played for some pretty good Kansas State teams, the Kansas State team that made it to the championship of the Big 12. So
it's the team with
what are your thoughts on this one, TJ?
I shared a little bit with you earlier, kind of jumped ahead of where we were supposed to be. I think if I'm on the Boise State side, I'm looking at it like this, right? We know we've got 4 or 5 tough games that are going to happen, right? We've got Oregon that is probably going to be, I know they're not looking at it this way, probably lose to Oregon, probably lose to Oregon State. I think it was, let me take another look. Washington State and then Utah State are going to be 2 really tough games as well. They're going to lose one of those games, right? So you're talking at least 3 losses if you're a realistic fan, if you're a realistic person, you're thinking at least 3 losses. So if Boise State is thinking the way that I'm thinking, they can't lose to Georgia Southern, right? We cannot let, if we're going to be in the playoff hunt, or if we're going to be that 12th team, or at least try to be the G5 representative, we cannot afford to lose to Georgia Southern. So Georgia Southern needs to have their best foot forward, right? They need to have their A game. They need to block up front. Boise State is a huge football team. I mean, their front line on both sides is absolutely insane. I mean, I think they're averaging on the offensive line 330 across the board. So, I mean, there's some big guys. So we're gonna have to beat them. I say we, Sunbelt. We're gonna have to beat them with speed, right? We're gonna have to get to the edges, and we're gonna have to play gap assignment and gap control football if we want to dominate and we want to win this game. Boise State is gonna try to run the ball. They're gonna try to bully them. They're gonna throw the ball when they have to, but they're gonna try to bully them up front because they think that they can because they're bigger, right? So. If I'm looking at it from the Boise State perspective, I'm going to say we can't afford to lose to Georgia Southern and still call ourselves a G5 representative in the playoffs. That said, if I'm Georgia Southern, this is a statement game for us, right? This is everybody saying Boise State is the class of G5. Let's show them who we are, right? And they're going to have to beat them with speed, get outside, get to the edges. They're going to have to make sure they open up the pass game. I think Boise State likes to run a cover 2 shell and kind of roll that safety sometimes to a cover 3. So this is me kind of doing some homework, right? Kind of looking at some videos before, a couple clips that I saw. So they kind of like to run a shell. So you got to work the middle of the field, right? If you're going to throw the football, you got to work the middle of the field. I know last year they were kind of I don't want to say pass happy, but about 55%, pass type offense. Destroy the middle of that field. Get your quick guys in there, your slots. And run them across the middle, make them guard you, make them guard the whole field. And once they back up and they lighten that box, then you can start running the edges, off tackle, those kinds of things, zone reads, that kind of stuff. But you got to get them on their heels, and you're going to have to beat a team like Boise State with speed.
Yeah. And I think Georgia Southern actually is equipped with a lot of that speed. So it'll be interesting.
That's exactly my point. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see, man. TJ told me he's going to get us an interception in that game.
Hey, listen, I hate Georgia Southern with every fiber of my being, but I do not want them to lose this football game. I do not want them to lose this football game.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with it being Georgia Southern for me. It has conference versus conference type of thing. Everyone's still stepping on the Sun Belt. The first names out of most people's lips are Boise State and Tulane. These teams that obviously deserve the respect too, but I'm tired of not hearing a Sun Belt team even mentioned. So there's one way to get that to change. Win this game.
And to be honest, there's a reason why teams like Tulane and Boise State and those kinds of teams, they're not reaching out to the top of our conference. They're not reaching out to JMUs. They're not reaching out to Troy and to Louisiana and to App State. They're not reaching out to the top of our conferences. They're reaching out to those middle of the pack teams or teams that were middle of the pack because they know that if we can get a win over a Sun Belt Conference football team, then we solidify our dominance as the best G5, conference. And they are not that. They're not playing against your Appalachian States who can beat a Tennessee, or I've been in close games with Tennessee and Penn State and have beaten Michigan and have beaten. They're not asking to play us. They're asking to play teams that they know that they got a better shot of winning against. I'm not saying that to stick my chest out. I'm saying it because they know what they're doing.
Technically, Boise and App have agreed to a series.
When does this happen?
I think it may start next year, either next year or the year after.
Okay. Well, I'll be interested.
So we do have to get them credit.
I'll be there. I'll be there in person for that.
There you go. Yeah. Oh, I plan to too. So this one's big though. To me, this one's the game of the week as far as I'm concerned. Obviously, Thursday night stuff exciting. We got one more that I've started. I think there's only one more, but this one to me is the single biggest game in the Sun Belt this weekend, and one of the better G5 teams or matchups across the entire landscape of college football. Is a lot of teams are going FBS versus FCS in that first week. One that's not FCS, but it's a group of 5 versus a power team, if you want to call South Carolina one of those.
I like what you did there.
We've had some discussions about ODU catching us off guard. Obviously, made us look a little silly last year with how well they performed early on. They had their moments too, but they do have a returning quarterback, as we see him on screen here, and expected to do pretty good things. But they did have a little bit of roster turnover that, we had the Monarchists on. They didn't seem to blow me away with their confidence level coming into this season. So I think the offense may have kind of gotten better, at least stayed the same at the very worst. But the defense is maybe a question mark. You got Jason Henderson, who's going to try and lead the nation in tackles after this year for the entire history of college football. And coming back from injury, though, so there's a slight question mark with him and his health maybe. But he says he's 100% and healthy, came back to win here at ODU. So you said it earlier. You think they have any shot? You think it's a slight shot? What do you think about this one here?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm picking South Carolina not because I think South Carolina is a good football team. With respect to their conference, right? I'm picking them because when it comes to two teams like this that are middle of the pack in their own conferences, it's going to come down to who can lean on who towards that third and fourth quarter, right? I don't think ODU is good enough to put up a lot of points, and versus the reason I say that is because from the talent pool is just going to be different, right? They're going to be better at each position, not just their ones, but their ones, their twos, and their threes, right? Their twos and threes are going to, in some cases, make the difference in terms of what long-term sustainability these teams are going to have into the third and fourth quarter, right? A team like South Carolina, those big old boys down there, they're going to lean on you and lean on you and lean on you. And even if the score is, 20-12, right, going into the third quarter, it's going to start separating itself at that point because you're just going to get tired, and your twos are not as good as South Carolina twos. You know what I mean? Like that's the nuts and bolts of this. It's not so much that talent isn't the ones can't match up, right? That's not what we're discussing. It's can you have a fresh guy rotate, and South Carolina is going to have a fresh defensive line that's going to be able to rotate, every other series or every other play or every other, whatever. And ODU is just not going to have that. And so that's going to make the difference in the third and fourth quarter is how big those guys are and how much they're going to lean on you. And those 1 and 2 yard gains in the first and second quarter in the third and fourth quarter are going to be 5 and 6 yard gains. And then eventually you're going to break a few of them. And that's when the score is going to be, 40 to 22 or whatever it is. But it won't be indicative of the talent of the ones. It'll be because they got tired towards the end. Does that make sense?
Yep. Makes perfect sense. In fact, look, I was there. It was a matchup that's now makes sense to talk about in this one. So App State had played South Carolina. They beat it back in 2019. Nothing about these teams and the matchup itself is similar in regards to positions and all that. But
right.
App State jumped on them a little bit early, got up. It seemed like it was going to be a comfortable win. And exactly what you just talked about started taking place.
Right.
South Carolina slowly started chipping away. And it was kind of like App State was just playing defensively. Just don't let them score. Just don't let them score. And they had a chance, like essentially a Hail Mary heave or two. Yeah. I think they actually had really 2 shots.
Yeah. And one in the back right corner.
Yep. Had he come up with that catch, that game's over and App State loses. So, yes, fans want to point at the victory, and it was a victory. It's a fun victory. Just get the victory however it comes.
Sure.
So ODU will certainly try and do that. But you're right. It's the depth question that comes into play here. Now these teams
and it's always going to be that.
The Big 12, the ACC, they can pay for depth,
Yeah.
So it's another level of the depth now. It was
Right.
already something that existed. Now they can just afford to keep these guys, which group of 5 teams just really can't do.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I would love to see ODU jump on. I mean, ODU was all over Wake Forest early last season. They ended up kind of blowing that one. I think they were 17-0 early on, and then
that surprised the heck out of me.
Yeah, same here. So we'll see what happens. We hope for the best. I would love to see a ODU victory to start off down there in South Carolina. Like we said, regardless, enjoy the tailgate because that's a good time.
True story.
All right, one that I don't know much about on the other side at all. I don't really know much about Stony Brook, except that I don't know much because they're not any kind of national brand, especially at football. But a national brand that does exist and is a huge part of the Sun Belt is the Marshall Thundering Herd. They've got some question marks at the quarterback position as they come into this season. To me, that's why I don't think extremely highly of them. They obviously lost some guys defensively as well. Owen Porter being probably the biggest name that most people would represent with the little 6-shooter. TJ, our favorite celebration from last year.
Sir.
Won't be seeing that on the field unless he's kind of pass that off to somebody. But I don't think that's the kind of thing you do. But regardless, they've lost some players defensively. They've got some question marks offensively. But I think this is one that they should have without much of an issue. What do you think here?
No, I'm with you. Like I said, I don't know a lot about Stony Brook. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a team that you hear very often, right? So it's not somebody that I'm looking out for. Like you said, I'm with you. So prediction, I do think Marshall wins the football game, right? Like I think they win it not because they're great, but because Stony Brook's not great. That's really quite the long and short of it. There's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of turnover that Marshall's going to have to deal with. There's some uncertainty, like you said, at the quarterback position. Last year they underachieved a lot. I thought, and I think this year will be more of the same. I don't think that they're the type of football team that you can count on, and as the season progresses, right? And a lot of things can happen too. Like I don't wish this on anybody, but injuries and those kinds of things happen. Based on the season that they've had last year, it doesn't bode well for what I think that they're going to be this year coming up. So yes, I'm going to pick them to win it, but I'm not convicted by it.
Right, and I also think this is one of those ones that hopefully they win comfortably, but it's probably still not enough of a matchup to really truly answer a lot of questions.
Sure. Yeah.
They could win this game 66-3, and I'm still not going to go.
It would tell me nothing.
Exactly. You're not going to go, wow, Marshall's amazing. It's just like, all right, they did what they should have done. They probably played very well to get that kind of a score, but I don't know if I'm going to have the door blown off just because they beat Stony Brook badly.
Exactly.
I guess it could go the other way, but if they win 20-13, you go, maybe we're right. But
right.
Maybe that's the only thing you're going to really learn in that one. But I do expect Marshall to take that one. I expect once they hit the field, it actually works out pretty well for Thunder and Herd fans in that one, especially at home. All right, this is the next one, and I actually thought about putting this as like a game of the week. It's kind of a rival conference, North Texas. I guess they've started some trash talk with some Texas State fans kind of coming out of nowhere. They don't like the fact Texas State is being talked about more than them. South Alabama, middle of the pack team, but ended the season well with a bowl victory. North Texas did not make a bowl last year and hasn't been good for the last 2 or 3 years. So I didn't put this as a game of the week, but I do think it's a good matchup. I think it's going to be a good game. What are your thoughts going into this one?
Yeah, I think it's a battle of two mediocre teams, right? And sometimes when you have two teams that aren't very good, you get a really good game. And I think that's where you're kind of going with it, right? Like there's sometimes like in the past where the Jets have played, the Dolphins, and it ended up being a good game because they both suck. I'm not saying these two teams both suck. I'm not saying that. And forgive me for fan bases if that's how that come across. But you're talking about two teams that, quite frankly, are fairly evenly matched, right? In terms of for lack of better terms, mediocrity, right? Like they are mediocre football teams. But again, like I said, two mediocre football teams sometimes makes great television. So I got. If you want me to pick,
I'm muting my mic.
I'm gonna pick South Alabama just because I have to. But I'm not. It could go either way. I'm not. Again, two very evenly matched football teams.
Yeah, I'm going to pick South Alabama solely because Gio Lopez. I think he's the difference maker at the quarterback position. I think he is a dual threat. I think you've got Bison, who's I think that's him pictured here on screen as a wide receiver. His brother is on the opposite side of the ball in the defensive aspect. They just honestly, I'll just go ahead and say this: they disappointed last year.
Yeah,
I thought
100%.
South Alabama would be up there with Troy, battling for the West Division, possibly even battling for a conference championship. But they did not meet those expectations. They did lose a lot from that defense that was supposed to be very good. So it will be kind of an intriguing thing if they actually end up with a better record this year than last year, because I expect less of them overall this year. But I expected a lot last year, and it didn't work out. So
right. I think we both expected a lot last year.
Yeah. So North Texas, hopefully they can take that one down. I know they think highly. They score a lot of points. They do a lot of stuff offensively to get the ball down, but I don't think they're a great defensive team. I think that would be kind of the division, not the division, but the difference maker in this one. There you go. A different D word. There we go. All right. Our guy, Jalen Rayner from the state of North Carolina, leading the Red Wolves in this one against a team that they seem to fall with, the Central Arkansas Bears. I don't know why they make the Bears purple. You have any idea why they make the Bears purple?
I don't know, and I don't like it. I've never seen a purple bear in my life. I don't think.
Nope.
It doesn't fit. So, but whatever. Who am I?
Yeah, I guess it would be different, right? You got the Cal Bears and a number of other teams that are kind of the Bears, but purple maybe is just a standout thing. Yeah. Anyway, sometimes these matchups are somewhat close with Arkansas State, and other times they are further apart. So I think this is one where they blow doors off Central Arkansas, though. Just with their offensive weaponry, their defense hopefully stepping up. Butch Jones thinks the culture and the players are in place now. It took a little bit of time, but I think they're rounding into form, and this is the year that they challenge towards the top of that West Division. Don't expect a slip up here. Maybe a little close at the very beginning, knocking the rust off, but I feel like there's a big gap by the time the end this one ends.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I think they beat them by a mile. At least house rules, to be quite honest. But to your earlier point about them contending in the West, I agree there. I don't think that they'll win the West, and I don't think that they'll be maybe a top 1 or 2 team. But I do think they're going to be a good football team. I mean, the thing, it's weird because I'm looking at the line right here on ESPN, and it's got Arkansas State -10. I think I see that being at least double that in terms of what the final score or what the final deficit is going to be. But anyway, that said, like I said, to your initial point, I think they will contend. They'll have a couple games where they slip up. I don't think they beat Troy. I don't think they beat Louisiana. And I don't think they beat Texas State. I think those are 3 games that they drop, but I do think that they'll be a good. And I think those games will be close too, right? I don't think they just outright lose them. I think, but based on where the program is headed, and then also too what Texas State has done, and we'll get to them in a little while, what they've done with their roster and where they are now currently. I don't think Arkansas State is ready for that yet, but we'll see.
Yeah. I want to point to the fact I think this one will get out of hand mainly because this offense put up 77 points versus Texas State last year. I'm not sure if I'd rank our Central Arkansas defense in the same regard as I would Texas State's. Not that Texas State was great last year.
No.
It should be much better this year, but still, this offense, I think this is similar to a team you used to play on, TJ, where the offense was just going to outscore the other team. Defense was going to be decent, but the offense was just going to outscore you.
Yeah,
I see that with this type of Arkansas State team. But again, you're right. There's some defenses in this conference that are very good. Doesn't mean they're just going to beat them like that. So
yeah, I agree.
to see if they can evolve across the board in this season. All right.
This is a
Another
good
game of the week. Undoubtedly, after what we saw between Nevada and SMU last week, in week 0, Nevada had SMU on the ropes till very, very late. A brand new ACC team in SMU had to pull it out. Troy is now coming in with a new head coach, quarterback. Well, again, a new starting quarterback in Bruce Crowder. A great name, obviously. But question marks across the board. Offensively, they've lost their best wide receiver, unfortunately, to a cancer diagnosis. They lost a ton of guys on defense, both to transfer to Tulane and, with John Summerall and guys to the NFL as well. So a lot of question marks for me in this one, but I still think Troy's got the culture and the team, for the most part, in place to still put a great product on the field. I just don't know if they'll match last season's pinnacle.
Yeah, I'm with you. The line says 8.5 Troy. I'm tend to lean that way as well. I think Troy is a better football team. I think they're better up front, offensively and defensively, and I think that's going to make the difference in this type of football game. Nevada's they showed us last week, right? That in week 0 that they're a pretty good football team and they can contend. I think Troy's a different beast though. I think where they're going to end up as far as what this is it's going to be one of those games like we talked about earlier. What does this look like going into the end of the third and start of the fourth quarter, right? If it's one of those games where it's the score's low and it stays low consistently, Troy's going to pull this out towards the end of the football game because they're just bigger, right? Like they're just a bigger football team. And so I think Troy leans on them. I got Troy again. Like I said, line is 8.5. I had them by 7. But either way, I think Troy pulls this out.
Yeah, I hope so. I think the big tool in this one is that Nevada's traveling to Troy. Maybe the spread changes if this game's in Nevada. But yeah, they've got to travel on the road for the first time this season. Obviously, they already played. Troy's playing their first game. That's the only other aspect of this, right? Like this was the game. Week 1, none of that would be a question mark to me. But the fact Nevada's now got a game under their belt and they lost a tight one with SMU, they're going to be hungry for this one. Troy's going to be hungry to prove that this new regime is going to drop off too. So
yeah, listen, Nevada knows it. Listen, they know, and I don't want to say they can't be 0-2, but they know that it's a hell of a mountain to climb if you're 0-2, right? So it's going to be tough. They're going to be a tough football team, but like you said, playing out of time zones, and then again, Troy is not SMU. Like they're just not them. Troy's a really good football team, and they're going to find that out, especially going into Troy. I think they're going to find that out the hard way.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, exactly. One that probably goes the way a lot of people think, which is Kentucky should take care of Southern Miss Saturday night on the SEC Network. I haven't been saying that for all of these, but if you're watching it live, you're seeing this as we're talking about it. But let's talk Artie's question first, actually. Go back to Artie's question. Is Will Hall on the hot seat? If he is, does this game swing it one way or other? This isn't really a game that he should win, right?
No, listen, first of all, yes, I agree, Artie. He is on – I don't want to say I agree. You asked the question. I'm answering it. Yes, I do think he is on a hot – listen, you can't have the seasons that he's had with the expectation that Southern Miss is and not be on the hot seat. That said, this game isn't going to swing it one way or the other. They're not expected to win this game, especially considering the kind of season that Kentucky's had the last 2 years, right? Kentucky's been a formidable football team the last 2 years. They're not a perennial SEC powerhouse, and they won't ever be, I don't think. I think they could be because I think Kentucky they've got a lot of talent football-wise around them, but I think they're competing with a lot of other schools that, quite frankly, if you're going to ask me, am I going to Tennessee or somewhere like that, I'm going to pick them over Kentucky. That's a whole other conversation for another day. But yes, the seat is hot. It won't get hotter after this game, but I think as the season progresses, 100%. I don't know that he's fired. Let me rephrase. They don't win 4 or 5 football games. I think he's gone. I think he's out of there.
I think I would agree with that. 4 or 5 is at least the mark you've got to hit. Dominic Ambrose, and a fellow writer on College Football Dog, saying what's up.
What's going on, boy?
As you can see in his icon, he's a little bit of a Florida State fan. So
I bet he was hurting the last Saturday. That was, man, listen, I don't want to get off topic, but what Georgia Tech did running the football was a masterclass in how you beat a team, right?
Yep.
You just keep pounding them and pounding them and pounding them. And eventually, if you stick to your game plan and you do what you know is going to work, it's one of those things where somebody's got to give. Something's got to give. And it ended up being Florida State's defensive line. So anyway, I don't want to get too far off topic, but what Georgia State did was a masterclass in how to run the football.
Yeah.
Especially with their quarterback.
Hopefully Georgia State.
I mean, that's what I mean, Georgia Tech, yeah. Sorry.
All right, okay, he said Florida State alumni, Georgia Tech O-line, D-line, out-muscled counterparts. Yep, trench warfare, they won it.
And Georgia Tech's quarterback ran for, I think it was like 80-some rushing yards himself.
Yeah, he really wasn't really all that impressive as like a
he's not. He's not a dynamic quarterback. Like they keep calling him a dual threat. He's just a guy. Like if he's playing a team in the SEC, they would have broke him up. Like you can't run like that. Anyway, again, I don't want us to get off topic. We're talking about Kentucky. But yeah, I was not impressed.
Yeah, we got Sports Bite. I really love Chris Joseph's show. If you haven't checked that out, a little shout out to him, what he does. Sports Bite spelled BYTES. He talks sports and food, and he's covering UAB for College Football Blogs, and they end up traveling to ULM next week, so we'll definitely be covering that one as well. He's saying win as one. I think that's the hashtag for UAB with Trent Dilfer as their head coach. So swinging back into this one, though, like you said, I don't think Southern Miss wins this one at Kentucky. I think Kentucky's too good. It's, again, though, not going to swing Will Hall's job, but hopefully they can at least look good in this one. I'll say that. Yeah. Hopefully respectable finish. Yeah, don't put money on the Eagles on that one.
Yeah, let's not do that.
All right, so the one we just kind of talked about indirectly, Georgia Tech. Does Georgia State catch Georgia Tech at a perfect time, TJ? Or is Georgia Tech really and truly as good as they looked against Florida State last week? What do you think here?
No, and I'm going to tell you why no, because there's some things you can fake, right? And there's some things you can't. And as a football team, if your identity is running the football, it doesn't matter if you play against Georgia State or UGA, right? You're going to run the football. Georgia State is not going to be big enough up front. They absolutely took apart Florida State's offense or defensive line. They took them apart, right? And not took them apart in terms of the score. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the way that they wore them down over a period of time. It won't be that hard to do that against Georgia State. They're not big enough. We just talked about this a little bit ago when we were, I think, talking about, I think it was Boise State and Georgia Southern and a couple of those other teams that are just bigger football teams up front. When you're big like that, you don't necessarily have to be great. You have to just stick to your game plan, and eventually it's going to work, right? Let's say hypothetically, Georgia Tech comes in, or Georgia State goes down to Georgia Tech, or I guess across the street or down the road, whatever.
Yeah.
And the first two drives, Georgia Tech goes and they have to kick field goals, and it's 6-0 with 8 minutes left in the second half. Who do you think feels more confident that they're going to win that football game? Georgia State, or Georgia Tech? I'm going to tell you Georgia Tech, because they know that eventually our run game is going to gain traction. It doesn't matter if you win by 5 or 55. A win is a win. And the difference is going to be, what can I do from the 80-yard line to the 80-yard line? Am I eating up clock? Am I controlling and possessing the football? Because that's what running the football well does, right? It takes the air out of the football and it takes the opportunities away from the other team. So a team like Georgia Tech, that's exactly what they did to Florida State. They took the air out of the ball. They kept the quarterback on the sideline, right? And they created a situation where now you're up against the clock. You're not just playing Georgia Tech again now. Now you're playing Georgia Tech and the clock, because Georgia Tech has possessed the ball for 6 minutes each drive. and it's either been 3 points or 6. So I say all that to say they're not going to catch Georgia Tech at a bad time, partly because Georgia State's just not a great football team. So that's one thing. But the other part to that is that if you can run the ball, doesn't matter who you're playing, you're going to run the football.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the big thing here is you're right. Like the trenches are not the same. And they're not even going to be close. I mean, you've got a team decimated very late in the process with a coach leaving. Coach Elliott, obviously, very well.
Right.
Del McGee's come in, and he's doing a hell of a recruiting job. It would not surprise me to see Georgia State #1 recruiting team in the Sun Belt next season, honestly, with what he's already brought in, what he's continuing to try and go after. I think players are buying in. They love him as a head coach, so I see good things. But you got to question the roster as a whole, right? It's piecemealed. It's guys from all over, guys late in the portal that were just, kind of finding their way to Georgia State. Hopefully it works out. And they definitely have some talented guys. The 2 guys they had at meeting today are big dudes, ready to lay the lumber. They talked about having a competition about who, puts out the most guys, not like injury-wise, but, laying the lumber, taking guys down fairly and legally, but, a competition, right?
Sure.
So they expect good things out of their defense. It'll be interesting to see if this one can stay close for a while, if something magical could happen. I know Georgia State is high on this because they think Georgia Tech is so high that they can't be beat. As you said, there's reasons they think that, and valid reasons, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right. Another one that I don't know, may not be in too much of a question. You think a little bit more highly of the Cajuns than I do coming into this season. I think it's got some question marks at the quarterback position.
Yep.
The health of a quarterback for a long-term portion of the season was an issue last year. Hopefully that doesn't become the same case this year. But Michael Desmero, obviously leading his team into this season, thinks the team's rounded enough form and thinks pretty highly of them. And they're going against Grambling, which is kind of a local, not rivalry, but matchup down there. Any chance Grambling can pull off the upset here?
What do they say? Yeah, what do they say? Any given Saturday, right? Listen, no, to be honest, no. Come on. They're good. Grambling is good for who they are, and to give Grambling some credit, historically they are a good football team.
Yeah.
So they're not bad at football. They're just not Louisiana. And like I said, I'm a little higher on them. I think quarterback's going to stay healthy this year. I hope, right? I think they have a good year, and I think they contend for that #1 spot in the West. That said, though, this is. We're talking at least 30. What's the line? What I got here? 33. Yeah, line's 30. Yeah. So okay. Yeah.
At least you have a line. I'm looking at mine. I don't even have a line for this.
So, oh, you don't?
Nope. On the site I use, no line. I got lines for every other. Wait, no, there's not a line on one of the other games. Yeah, the Jackson State UL Monroe. Also not. It's like the FCS games. They don't put a line on because they know they are going to lose money.
Yeah. Right. So yeah. No. Listen. Yeah. They line for ESPN is 33. I said 30. They'd be lucky to lose by 25. Grambling, that is. So.
Right. Yeah, I don't see much of a. Well, what were we talking about with Rage and Review is that the matchup we're going to watch here is the Bants.
Right. Yes, right. That's fair. That's a fair point.
They're going to come. That's going to be the most, hopefully for Cajun fans, that is the most interesting part of this matchup, right? Because if they're watching on the field real intently, that means we've got a game. Playing at home, even though, again, it's going to be – I really don't think it'll play into the players. It's going to be weirder for the fans when they're going through all the construction stuff. You were gone by the time all that happened at App, right?
Oh, yeah, long gone. I don't think they even started that until 2012, 2013 is when they started a lot of the construction. I was gone in 2009.
I thought they were doing the other side there for a little bit. The visitor side, if you will.
Not while I was there.
Not while you were there? Okay.
No, I don't think they broke ground on that until like maybe 11 or 12.
Okay. I was going to see if you had, obviously
I went back in, what was the year we played Miami at home?
Oh, 15 or 16, something like that.
Okay. When I went back for that year, the upper deck on the visitor side was completely built.
Okay.
So, which tells me that they probably didn't start on it until 12 or 13. It takes a couple years to get something like that going.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
You know what I mean? So that was the first time and I've never sat over there since then. I hated that seat. I won't ever go on that side again.
Well, you get blasted by the sun.
Well, and not just that. It was like I just felt a part of, like, I don't know. Like I felt like I was part of Miami. Like I had a whole bunch of Miami people around me. I was like, what is happening? Like, this feels awful. I won't ever do this again. Never sitting on the visitor side ever again, unless we're the visitors.
I wonder if that will affect a number of people traveling to Louisiana this year. People that are aware of the stadium situation. But
yeah, it very well could. It very well could. But I don't think enough that it'll matter on the field.
No, that was a stretch of a thing where you guys even care at all. You know what I mean? I was like, as a player, you come out of a different entrance or whatever. Maybe that's like the smallest little part of it. Right. Otherwise, obviously, while the live play is going on, I know it's not an issue. I didn't know if it was like a weird feel going into game day when your routine and the thing you've always done is a little different or something,
Right. Yeah. I mean, you look up there, but quite honestly, during the game, unless there's a big play and you're like getting the crowd hype or getting the crowd involved, you don't really think about the crowd. Like, honestly, there's parts of the game I don't even hear it. Or when I was playing, I didn't even hear the crowd because you're so hyper focused on what it is that you're doing, especially in crunch time situations. And it's almost like when you're hyper focused, and not to get us off topic, but when those kinds of, you ever see those movie games where, like, movies about football where it goes almost not necessarily dark, but everything just kind of goes quiet, and there's a scene and the quarterback's going under center or whatever it is, the ball is snapped, and like you can't hear the fans, and then after the ball is caught or after the touch, and then that's when you hear the crowd again, and it's this big, like the crowd never existed until the touchdown happened. That's what it's like sometimes. Like it's almost like you don't hear or see anybody until you want to, until you choose to. And it's when you get into those modes, into those moments, like the crowd, I mean, it matters to maybe the other team, or maybe it matters to the crowd, right? Or to the people on the sideline, even some of your people that are on the sideline, because you're getting the crowd involved. But when you're on the field, you don't think about that. Like, especially in big situations, you don't. Crowd, yeah. We love them. We love you guys, 100%. But when it's 3rd and 3, and we need these next 3 yards to keep the drive alive, or to potentially win the football game, I gotta be honest with you, I don't even know you exist.
Yep, that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Speaking of not existing, Charlotte 49ers fan base can't even sell out this game with James Madison. And I venture a guess that JMU will have more fans down there than the Charlotte fans, but we'll see, I guess. Is this – and I don't know if you've seen this part yet, but Pogge, the head coach down there at Charlotte, has just come out and said, 8 or 9 of his starters are injured coming into the week 1, and they won't be 100% till week 3 or 4. What are you doing that all of your starters are that hurt going into week 1? But regardless of that, does that mean that JMU just pronounces this team, or is there still quite a bit to prove for James Madison going into this game against Charlotte?
No, I hate that he said that out loud. And the reason I hate it is for a couple different reasons, right? First reason is, first of all, like you said, what the hell are you doing? Why is half of your team hurt in this early in the season? Like, what has happened in training camp that these guys are that injured? That's the first thing. Second thing is, now you're telling me you're making an excuse for losing, that you've accepted defeat already. And what that puts into the minds of your players is that our coach doesn't really expect us to win. Otherwise, why would he go out and tell the general public that our team is injured, right? So that when we do lose, oh, well, yeah, I told you guys we were hurt. So, yeah, we'll corral, we'll do this, we'll get back on track. I hate that. I hate every single part of that. Like now, again, if we're talking about the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow goes down and he gets hurt, yeah, okay, I get it. It's a good chance that but no head coach is going to say, well, we don't really expect to win. And not saying that he said this, but this is essentially the message that you're sending is that we don't expect to win because we've got guys that are injured that are out. No, you give us the best product that you can, and you put the best product on the football field. Don't tell me about your injuries. And furthermore, I got questions about what were you doing anyway that these guys are injured? These are the questions that I have. So don't tell me about being hurt, and don't tell me about coming into the season hobbling into it because that seems like a you problem. You give me your best product, and you play football. Don't tell me about any of that. And JMU's coming off the most turnover that they've had in God knows how long. So there shouldn't even be any excuses. You should expect to at least compete. But don't tell me about being injured this time of the year. No, I don't want to hear about that.
Yeah, no, I agree. When he did that, it was like, it could be the greatest coach speak fake out if it's not true. But I don't know why the hell you would do that. I don't know why you go to that extent.
Yeah.
Because it's not like JMU's going to say, well, guess what? Now we don't have to prepare as hard. I mean,
right. Like, what are you getting out of that?
I have seen someone say, oh, I don't believe it. I mean, I don't know why he'd lie about it, but maybe he's trying to play dirty, but I don't know. I don't think I see that.
Yeah, well, and even still, even if that is the case, like you said, what do you think is going to happen? JMU's going to take their foot off the gas because you're injured? No, they're going to beat the hell out of you because now they know that they can. Like, and if it's not true, what did you gain out of that? Like, what was the point in you telling me? That's horrible gamesmanship. Like, I don't know what you thought you were going to get out of that. Anyway, I rant about these kinds of things because these kinds of things, they piss me off, man. It really gets under my skin. Don't give me a pregame excuse as to why you're going to lose a football game. I don't care to hear any of that. You know, like Armani Edwards didn't start the first two games of 2007, and we lost to NC State and we lost to I think Wofford at home. Or no, it's back-to-back seasons that we lost. We didn't make excuses. Trey Elder is a very good backup quarterback. Trey Elder could have been a starting quarterback anywhere else in our conference, right? It just so happened that he was backing up the best football player in the history of, at that time, FCS football. FCS football. So, we didn't make excuses. We knew we had horses in other places. So everybody's got to saddle up and do what they need to do. So don't tell me about your injuries. We had the best college football player of all time injured on our football team. Yeah, we lost the game, but we didn't make excuses about it. So don't give me that. I don't want to hear that.
I don't think JMU will be making any excuses. I think they're going to win this one easily in the end, especially with that aspect of these players being hurt. But even if they weren't, I'm still favoring James Madison coming out on top in this one. I think even with the turnover of the new head coach, I think there's a lot of excitement and a lot of talent still left on that field. I expect JMU to take care of business down in Charlotte. In the last game of the week, which it's really just listed last. A couple of these games all start at 8 p.m. Eastern and 7 Central. We've got Texas State taking on Lamar. I mean, it feels like Texas State is only playing Texas teams this year, except for a few single games.
Well, I mean, quite honestly, they could play all Texas teams and still.
That's a good point.
You know what I mean? Like football in Texas is a real thing. Like it's a real thing. I live in North Carolina and I love North Carolina, but listen. Football in Texas is football in Texas.
Oh, yeah. Already saying Texas State has played Lamar 22 times since 1951. I predict the 16th Bobcats win.
I'm with you.
Spoiler alert, TJ and I do too.
Yeah, I would say so.
Oh, man. Yeah, once again, you don't really want to sit here and down talk an FCS team that's going to try and come in and prove everything and everybody wrong.
Sure.
But you do also have an exceedingly high expectation for this Texas State team. We've heard it all off season. Hell, we heard it a little bit at the end of last season when we realized just how many talented players they had on that roster. Oh, and then they just had the offensive player of the year from the Sun Belt last year in Jordan McLeod to be their new quarterback.
I mean, yeah, a cheat code maybe?
Yeah. Now the question mark is still, does the defense really improve? It should improve. On paper, they've improved. Does that solidify itself on the field after this.
Right. Yeah. And that's the biggest thing.
I think in this game it looks like it does.
Yeah. No. It certainly in this game, but I think that's going to be the biggest thing for offensively. We got no questions anyway. Kylie in a 9.5, one of the best 80s. Yeah. Listen. Dolly is. I'm a fan. Have been and always will be from Dolly Parton. So. Yeah, but no, going back to my point, the offense never has been a question for us. I think you or I, we knew last year, even with what was his name, TJ, Texas State's quarterback last year.
Oh,
TJ Finley. Yeah, even with TJ Finley, I mean, TJ Finley was a damn good quarterback.
Yep.
Right? I mean, they go from him to McLeod. Like again, I mean, if anything, is a step up from what they had last year, and not a huge step, but certainly a step up. The defense has to be better, and they've got to be better in particular against the run. I mean, they got decimated last year in the run game, and in the pass game too. But if you can't stop a team from running the football, what that tells me is if you can't stop a team from running the football, then when you get into those close games that are 4 minutes left in the game and the team's got to run the clock out and get you off the field or keep your offense off the field, you can't win those games. Right? Because you can't stay in them because you can't stop a team from running. So anyway, I say that to say Texas State, they only are going to they can't be worse defensively. That's for sure.
Yeah, be difficult to do that. So definitely a step up. I agree with you there. And again, I don't see them having a struggle stopping Lamar in this one. Again, just like every early season match, I feel like, nothing would surprise me early if it's tied in the first quarter or something like that. But you and I both know, and a lot of these fans that are watching and listening know, football is a long game. There's no reason to panic when things like that happen.
No, you don't.
I all the time see people react because the team scored one touchdown against their team. It's like, relax. This is way too early to worry about, you're not going to be able to stop them all day. Maybe, but that's a small sample size.
Yeah. Didn't we watch, who was it? Northern Kentucky or Eastern Kentucky? Well, who was it? Eastern Kentucky last year. God, I can't remember. It was bowl game. It was during bowl season when I was at work and they were up. That was
a Sun Belt matchup. That was ODU and Western Kentucky.
ODU and Western Kentucky. That's what it was. I was at work and they were up by I don't even know, 17 or 18 at halftime.
Yep.
I get home and we're going to overtime. And I'm like, what the hell happened? What I think I texted you when I got home.
Oh yeah, we were talking.
Yeah, what is going on?
And your wife was even updating you on what happened.
Yeah, exactly. My wife was texting me like, are you watching this? Are you seeing this? I'm like, no, I'm on the way home. What? I thought the game was over.
Oh yeah, it should have been.
So to your point, don't panic.
Which change. Is also funny. We're coming full circle here. Guess where TJ Finley ended up? Western Kentucky.
How about that?
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah. So, Western Kentucky runs that air raid offense. TJ Finley,
he's a good fit for it.
He said, good quarterback. So he could have another great year. Western Kentucky could have another great year. Unfortunately for us, they beat one of our teams in a bowl game.
Yeah.
Whatever. Before we go here, I want to introduce one new thing that I had fun with. TJ hasn't even seen this graphic.
I have not. It looks cool though.
Well, yeah. This is the Sun Belt Conference. The sun is a part of the name. I don't know why. I kind of feel like a weather aspect to the whole thing. So there's this map here behind us, a weather map, and in front I've put the outlook, as you will. And again, this is just the first time we're trying it out. But I've got like a sunny outlook, partly cloudy, and then kind of a rainy outlook. Again, this is just a fun graphic that we may keep up with. We may not. We've already got the power rankings. But this is more of not a prediction. It's just kind of how things are going. And so this is like the preseason one. Like everything's sunny for App State, Texas State, JMU. I included Arkansas State. Maybe that was a little bit of a stretch. But I think
they premature, but they're looking up for sure.
Exactly. Yes. So this is different from the power rankings. And that's where we kind of went with this. But you've got 4 teams in each of those first 2 categories. Great to be included in those. The cloudy ones are more of the teams which are just kind of like your fans maybe don't expect a bowl game, or like you're right on that cusp of that. Maybe 6 wins expected or thought of. And then the teams that are in the cloudy aspects, there's Southern Miss, Georgia State, and ULM. I'm thinking that those fan bases are kind of realistic with themselves and saying, like, a bowl game is probably not realistic this year.
But no, we want to hope to win 4 to 5 football games.
Yeah, which would not be good for Will Hall as we.
That is a fact.
Yeah, but we'll see. We might keep up with that. I like that graphic. It's a little busy, but that's why I was kind of see what it looked like up on screen, what other people kind of think of it. We do appreciate already checking out the show. And thank you for all of you who have stuck with us through this travesty of multimedia.
It's all good. It happens. It happens.
I'm only hopeful, TJ, and I don't know if I kind of got this to you. I have that echo on my side still going on every time I talk.
No, I don't hear it. You've been good. That's good.
Artie said he heard a little bit of a lag, so hopefully when I go to download this audio-only version after this, it's clean. Because if it's not, I ain't putting this out there because it is driving me up insane.
Listen, you've been a consummate professional this entire time. So kudos, hats off to you.
The hard part is if I'm talking, I can hear my echo, right? And I can't tell if you've chimed in at the same time because all I hear is voices.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's been a couple times we've talked over each other. It's all good though.
Oh man, we promise it should be better next week. Again, I don't know what happened there. We've never had that happen before, but hopefully it all cleans itself up and we can get back to no struggles as we go through this. TJ, do you want to leave us with any thoughts or opinions before we get out of here and wrap up week 1?
No, I mean, as always, man, tune in. Every week is rivalry week, right? Every week a team can go down. We talk about, South Alabama, ULM, ODU, those teams not being super tough or not having the expectation level not being very high. Don't be surprised if they pull up a couple good wins, right?
Yeah.
It could happen. Tune in. I think the Sun Belt is the best G5 conference around. Really excited about Boise State. Please, everybody tune in to Boise State and Georgia Southern. I think that's going to be an excellent football game, along with some others, certainly week 1. But we are excited to get this thing rolling. Glad you guys are with us. Glad to be back for another football season. We got football coming up tomorrow. Tomorrow night, there's football.
And 2 Sun Belt games of them.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it does not get much. Is it Christmas? Because it feels like it.
Might be better.
True story. But no, glad to have you guys along with us. Glad to be back, and let's go football.
Absolutely. I can't say anything better than that. So we're going to wrap it up with TJ, and we will see you guys all next week.